Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock. This is Capitol View.
A good Sunday morning to you and welcome into Capitol View. I am Mallory Brooks. Months after lawmakers moved the date of Arkansas's 2020 primary elections, we are about to see the first Democratic presidential candidate visit the natural state. We will break down Bernie Sanders' upcoming trip to Northwest Arkansas. That's coming up later in the show. And we also now know when voters will pick the newest state representative to replace the outgoing House Minority Leader. But we begin with a worsening flooding situation that is causing problems across the state of Arkansas. It is absolutely tragic. Recent heavy rainfall in Oklahoma has led to record high levels along the Arkansas River from Fort Smith down to Pine Bluff. The state has never seen flooding like this before, and we still have several days until it could get worse for some areas. Governor Asa Hutchinson already making 2 disaster declarations. President Trump has promised federal funding.
We're very excited about that. This is the first step. This gives us money immediately for public safety, things like that, to protect property. And then we look forward to working hard to get further declarations as we go further.
It's not going to happen tomorrow or the next day. It takes us time to be able to make the damage assessments and put them into place so that we can ask for the appropriate level of federal assistance.
This is a vital link between Oklahoma and Arkansas that brings with it a lot of commerce that the governor has already talked about as being disrupted when these kinds of events happen.
In addition to the damage to homes and farmland, the disruption to Arkansas's navigation system is costing an estimated $23 million a day. Joining us this morning to discuss that and much more is Mike Preston, Executive Director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and soon-to-be Director of the newly formed Department of Commerce, which we will be talking about in just a minute. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Mallory, thanks for having me.
It is absolutely devastating seeing what's happening across Arkansas. You see farmers losing absolutely everything they've worked for their entire lives, homes that are completely underwater. What are we looking at economically in our state at this point?
Yeah, it's a significant impact in our state, and we don't yet know the terms of how bad it's going to be. This is still ongoing, and once the flood waters finally recede, then we'll be able to better realize the extent of the damage. But as you mentioned before, $23 million impact daily, that adds up very quickly. But you think not just only the farmers who are devastated and not able to plant their crops or have lost their crops, but even the barge traffic on the river has been shut down. So you think about that major thoroughfare of commerce that's going through our state can no longer have access to it. That makes a significant impact, and the ripple is felt throughout our state. So it's going to take some time for us to recover from this.
Absolutely. We'll be talking about this for a long time coming. Could this impact business in the future coming to the state?
I think businesses realize that there's always the opportunity or chance for a natural disaster to occur in whatever state. You might have flooding in a state, or tornadoes, or it could be an earthquake in California, it could be wildfires or a hurricane. So that's just something that businesses kind of have to put in. You have insurance and you plan for that. Hopefully it won't impact us. Obviously we're going to have to look at our floodplains, and the sites and locations that lie within those floodplains now might need to be redrawn and rethought at after we see this 100-year or 500-year flood. We've never seen it before, so we might need to look at that and consider it in the future.
Absolutely. My goodness, our thoughts and prayers with everybody out there, all of you who are dealing with this. We are here with you. I know Arkansas will help you rebuild. Economic Development Commission working hopefully very hard in the future for that as well.
That's right.
Also want to talk about a new position, your new cabinet position, Secretary of Department of Commerce, one of many positions that Governor Hutchinson just appointed. But this is one of the biggest ones as he kind of pools a lot of things together. Describe exactly what you'll be doing.
So we have a new Department of Commerce, or will have a new Department of Commerce come July 1st. So between now and July, we've got a lot of work to do to pull this all together. So you're combining aspects of economic development, what I've been working on for the last several years, combined with our Development Finance Authority, our Department of Workforce Services, our Office of Skills Development, Waterways Commission, Aeronautics, also merging that in with our regulatory side side of banking, insurance, and securities commission. So you have a very new, large Department of Commerce. Ultimately, the goal and effort of Commerce, though, is to improve business in the state of Arkansas, improve the lives of Arkansans. Some of it will be outward-facing and more promotional recruitment efforts in the economic development side. And then you have the regulatory component as well on the Insurance, Banking, and Securities Commission. But it's going to be a large department, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to work together with departments that maybe have been not so easy to work together in the past, or we're kind of operating in silos. You bring that under one umbrella and get everyone moving in the same direction. Something I'm excited about. Absolutely.
Something that Governor Hutchinson promised throughout his campaign is something consolidating some of these and making everybody work together. How do you make this work? Also with Economic Development Commission.
And that's it's going to be a daunting task, but a task that I think we're up for, and all the folks who represent one of the agencies and the employees there, they're ready for it. They see it. I think to me, what really gets gets me excited is the opportunity to have workforce development working with economic development in a way that we've never had before in the state, and we hear it time and time again. When we're at 3.6% unemployment in our state, businesses need workers. They need people who are skilled that can go out and fill the jobs. Having economic development under the same umbrella as our workforce development team, that's just going to allow us to prepare those workers, train them for the future, and fill these jobs that businesses have open right now.
Look forward to seeing what you do in the future. While we have you on, I have to ask about that baby boy, your sweet baby boy.
He's something else. 5 months now. Little Pierce is our whole world, but he's doing great.
Precious. Absolutely precious. So happy for you and your sweet wife.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mike Preston. We appreciate you for joining us. Coming up after a quick break, we're accustomed to seeing famous people at Walmart shareholders meeting, but not politicians who have spent their careers criticizing the world's largest retailer. We'll preview Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders' upcoming trip to Arkansas. You're watching Capitol View on a Sunday morning.
Hey Arkansas, Jared Russell of Russell Honda. We at Russell Honda are proud to have earned Honda's Council of Excellence Award once again. That's 13 years in a row. The only Honda dealer in the state to do that. To celebrate, I would like to invite you out to test drive the all-new Honda Passport, a mid-size SUV that's sure to impress. You can also check us out at russellhonda.com, where you can look up our inventory, fill out credit apps, everything you need to do to make the car buying experience as smooth as possible. So check us out online. Family owned, family values. Oh, hi Mom.
Hey y'all, it's with a grateful heart that we want to welcome you to Down South. It's been a dream of my mother and I to create a space where you can come as you are and feel at home, but leave inspired, confident, and empowered to go home and try something new. Take time out of your day and come and visit us. You'll find unique Southern-inspired furnishings and gifts with a farmhouse, Southwestern, rustic chic kind of vibe. We can't wait to see y'all down south in El Paso.
It's hot and you need a pool. Super summer sale at Family Leisure.
Pools from $12.99. Patio furniture. We've got it all, and it's all on sale. Ask about the $49.99 spa special. Play sets, grills, and more. Summer sale going on now at Family Leisure.
Sold it. Attention Hot Springs business owners, developers, and investors. Absolute commercial real estate auction, Thursday, June 6th at 10 a.m. at 1239 Central Avenue in Hot Springs. The 27,000 square foot commercial building on 2.7 acres, Zone C4, 1 mile from downtown Hot Springs and Oaklawn Racing Casino Resort. With a daily traffic count of 21,000 vehicles per day, the real estate will be offered in tracks and combinations. Also selling an antique car collection, and everything is selling regardless of price. Go to wilsonauctioneers.com. Sold it.
When you need new floors and the best deal in the state, there's only one place. Georgia Carpet Mills, home of the waterproof, kid-proof, pet-proof CORE-TEC floors from U.S. Floors. Don't forget to ask about our 0% financing. Georgia Carpet Mills, the best-kept secret in flooring.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
They pay their Walmart workers wages that are so low that many of their employees have to go on Medicaid, food stamps, or subsidized housing. Now is the time for the Walton family, the richest family in America, to get off of welfare, pay their workers a living wage.
Welcome back to Capitol View on this Sunday morning. For years, Vermont Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders has put a target on Walmart, the world's largest retailer that is based here in Arkansas. Now in the midst of his second presidential campaign, Senator Sanders will soon get the chance to bring that message directly to the natural state. He's planning a trip to Bentonville during Walmart's annual shareholders meeting later this week. Joining us from Northwest Arkansas is someone who pushed to bring Sanders to the state. Micah Wallace, president of the University of Arkansas Young Democrats, joins us this morning. Welcome to the show, Micah. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we want to get into the substance of Senator Sanders' message in just a moment. First, tell us about the push to get him to come to Arkansas in the first place, the effort that played out behind the scenes to connect with him and his campaign to make all this happen.
Well, in 2016, there were many Bernie rallies in Arkansas that Bernie wasn't even at, and I know that the University of Arkansas Young Democrats has been inviting Senator Sanders to come speak on campus, but what he really listens to is workers. And so when the Walmart workers asked him to come speak at the shareholders meeting, I feel like that was an offer that he could not refuse.
And you've been working towards that. That is now happening. The clip we played at the start of the segment is actually from Senator Sanders' first presidential run in 2016. He's been a critic of Walmart for decades. The primary purpose of his visit is to push to give hourly Walmart employees a seat on the corporate board. Let's say that did happen. What is the hope for a policy change like that?
Senator Sanders has always been a huge voice for workers' rights, and hopefully if there's worker representation on the board, then those kinds of decisions that the board makes will be more representative of what would actually be good for Walmart employees.
And Bernie Sanders did lose the 2016 Democratic primary in this state by a fairly substantial margin, though he did do better in Northwest Arkansas, where you are, than other areas of the state. Is there any concern that he might not be the best person to bring this message to the people here?
Well, I think that having such a big name come and deliver your message is a huge success, but Walmart has already said that they are not going to listen to Senator Sanders, and that whatever he proposes will not be adapted into their company policies, which has said something about how they are unwilling to listen, even if the name is big enough. I feel like Senator Sanders coming is going to bring a lot of attention nationwide to the issue of the Northwest Arkansas community, especially Walmart workers and what affects them. And so I feel like that in itself is a huge win.
And when he did run 4 years ago, he supported the push for a $15 minimum wage. It was not a mainstream idea at the time, but now other candidates are jumping on board with it. In addition to Walmart, advocates have been targeting McDonald's with that message recently. Do you think taking this message directly to Walmart the way Sanders is planning, will it help that cause?
I think it will definitely help that cause. I mean, it's impossible to ignore when someone's standing right in front of you saying that, and as more and more companies are adapting and seeing that a $15 minimum wage is a livable wage and is going to be something adapted in many more companies, it will become inevitable that Walmart offers their employees a $15 minimum wage. The only issue is how long they will make the people that work for them suffer until they decide to pay them what they deserve.
And Micah, earlier this year, Arkansas lawmakers changed the date of next year's primary elections to March, which moves us to Super Tuesday. Although we have more than 20 Democrats running for president, Bernie Sanders will be the first to visit Arkansas. What are the Young Democrats doing on the University of Arkansas campus to bring more candidates to that area?
Well, trust me, we've been sending out some letters. We've been inviting any presidential candidate that wants to visit our campus to come. We've made contact with the Beto campaign. We would love to have Beto because 20% of the University of Arkansas's campus is Texans. It would be amazing to get Castro here. He is a huge progressive voice, has a lot of support in Northwest Arkansas. So we are totally open and welcome to any candidates that want to come visit our campus, and we would be more than happy to host.
And what kind of messages would you like to hear, hoping to hear from these candidates when they do come to visit the natural state?
Well, I think any college campus is going to be a very good place to talk about reducing student debt like Elizabeth Warren has been doing. We'd be so fortunate if she would come. And I think that more than anything, students are just worried about their future because of issues related to the environment. Talking about a real plan to face climate change is going to be essential for any presidential candidate that wants to get the nomination.
Micah Wallace, thank you for joining us this morning on Capitol View, president of the Young Democrats on the University of Arkansas campus. We appreciate you. Again, we look forward to hearing what happens during that visit later this week at the shareholders meeting. Not everyone is on board in Northwest Arkansas with Senator Sanders' message to Walmart. When we come back, I'll talk to a Republican state lawmaker about his concerns for Sanders' suggestions to the Waltons. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Tell your story when you wear a one-of-a-kind Ronaldo design from Keepsakes. Inspiring Ronaldo bracelets symbolize your story of love, friendship, and precious memories. Shop our premier selection of Ronaldo designs for the best quality and prices at Keepsakes Jewelry.
Leave behind the day's distractions. Unplug from the daily grind. Get instant relaxation with a hot spring spa from Townley. Come see our 17 spa showroom and even take a test soak. Townley Pool and Spa is a Big Green Egg Platinum dealer. We have all the great accessories for your egg. Hot Spring Spa, Big Green Egg.
Ah, Townley. What's your more? With Powerball drawings of at least $40 million every Wednesday and Saturday, more of the life you want is waiting. Get your ticket to more. What's your more? With Mega Millions drawings of at least $40 million every Tuesday and Friday, more of the life you want is waiting. Get your ticket to more.
For over 50 years, Cracker Barrel has been cooking home-style favorites to perfection. We thought we'd celebrate that tradition with new, crispy, juicy Southern Fried Chicken. Bring it on home in our 12-piece picnic box with all the fixins. New Southern Fried Chicken, now at Cracker Barrel.
Lowe's knows to paint it right, only the best will do. So we carry pro-trusted Purdy brushes and rollers and everything else you need so you can get in, get out, and get it done. Buy 3 or more Purdy paintbrushes and get 15% off. Do it right for less. Start with Lowe's.
Nothing impacts your home's comfort and value like structural issues. So when you're looking for someone to address foundation issues, water or moisture problems, or settling concrete, it's important to call the real experts. Here in our area, you'll find those experts at Redeemers Group. Call us for wall cracks. Call us for doors and windows that stick. Call us for water and moisture. Most of all, call us because you can trust us to treat you and your home with care and respect. Call for a free, no-obligation inspection today.
Memories begin with a gift from Keepsakes. Your wedding rings will showcase your love and devotion. We take pride in personally selecting your diamonds direct from Antwerp, Belgium, home of the best diamonds in the world. For the best quality and prices, buy your diamonds from Keepsakes.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to Capitol View. We have been talking about the upcoming Bernie Sanders appearance at the Walmart shareholders meeting. It's safe to say, though, not everyone is excited about a presidential candidate pushing democratic socialism in Arkansas. Joining us to discuss that is Republican State Senator Bob Ballinger of Berryville. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on Capitol View today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start by talking about your reaction to Bernie Sanders coming to Northwest Arkansas and bringing his message to the Walmart shareholders meeting.
Well, first I'd like to say that I appreciate an individual having the opportunity to go out and voice, I don't care where you're from or who you are, to go out and voice your opinion, right? That's the concept of First Amendment freedom of speech, right? So you ought to have the right here to come here and communicate. However, one thing that I'd want to point out is I kind of feel like it's an attack sort of on Arkansans directly, and I mean, there's so many of us that our way of life is directly tied to Walmart, and whether that means you earn your money by working at a store or working in the home office, or you're a shareholder who your savings is tied up in Walmart, or frankly, you're just a consumer who appreciates having access to relatively inexpensive grocery items and clothing or whatever. So it is. You kind of when you pick on Walmart that way, it's sort of like you pick directly on Arkansas.
And it's fair to say everyone wants employees to have good-paying jobs. Tell us you're concerned with the pressure campaign he's waging on big companies like Walmart to pay workers more, which includes a bill he's sponsoring that would block stock buyback unless employees are paid $15 an hour. How do you feel about a presidential candidate making Walmart one of his biggest foils?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows his lack of understanding of basic economics, right? I mean, Walmart already pays their employees over $11 an hour starting out. If you actually go to people who are employed with the home office or even in the stores, most of them are really happy to have a job and appreciate the job that they have. So it just is really meddling when you get government to come in and intervene and start saying that they want to change what a wage is that has already been agreed upon between an employer and employee. It's socialism, and that's what Bernie Sanders is pushing. And frankly, a lot of the folks in the Democrat Party are pushing a brand of socialism now, and it is devastating. I mean, you see what's happened in Venezuela and any other socialist country. It always ends in economic collapse.
And with that, I want to read a statement from Walmart. Walmart said in this statement, quote, "We are proud of the fact that 75% of our U.S. management associates began their career as frontline hourly associates. If Senator Sanders attends the shareholders meeting, we hope he will approach his visit not as a campaign stop, but as a constructive opportunity to learn about the many ways we're working to provide increased economic opportunity, mobility, and benefits to our associates," end quote. That coming from Walmart. Do you see or do you feel like there is any fair criticism towards Walmart or anything you would want to change?
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, I don't agree with Walmart a lot of times on their different positions and philosophies on things. I mean, I've not voted for every bill that Walmart wanted to get done in the state legislature. However, I would say in this situation, when it comes to wages, they provide for a lot of families to be able to purchase food and items for their family, not only for the wages that they pay and through the wages that they pay, but also in providing the service in communities all over the state, all over my state. So, from my standpoint, attacking them for their business structure and how they pay people is an attack on the workers themselves. So, I think, I love the statement. 75% of the people started off working as an entry-level position, and now most of them are making good money and taking care of their family. And I think think of all the kids who've learned to work by working at Walmart, and all the people who've actually paid their mortgages, sent their kids through school, and was able to fund their lives by working there. And from my standpoint, it's an attack by Senator Sanders. It seems like it's really just an opportunity for him to go out and get a little bit of attention in a really hotly contested Democrat primary.
And on the subject of minimum wage, like you were just saying, you pushed for some exemptions to the minimum wage amendment passed by voters last year. That push fell short, and even Governor Hutchinson expressed some reservations about making changes like that you proposed, rather. The General Assembly is now over, but plenty of lawmakers are already looking ahead to 2021. By then, the statewide minimum wage will be $11 an hour. Have you considered maybe revisiting trying to add exemptions in the next session?
Yeah, I think that from the very beginning, what I proposed was just an opportunity to get the conversation started to try to find a solution, a fix for some of my constituents who are really going to feel the pinch. The truth is that I think until we actually start feeling the pinch and people realize how devastating $11 an hour minimum wage will be on some of our small businesses and nonprofits, I think that it's probably we're just not going to have to fix it. I think by the time we get around to 2021, we're going to have some small businesses that are going to be faced with shutting down, a lot of layoffs. I think the economic impact of having the highest effective minimum wage in the country is going to be upon us. And at that point, my guess is there'll be a lot of people clamoring to try to find answers.
And Senator Ballinger, while we have you today, we want to ask you about recent developments in other states on abortion restrictions. In Missouri, the state's only existing abortion clinic may close soon. In Alabama, the governor signed a bill into law that essentially bans all abortions. Arkansas did pass several restrictive laws in 2019, including a trigger law that would make abortions illegal if the Supreme Court strikes down Roe versus Wade. But knowing now what we know, what's been going on in other states, would you do anything differently in the last session, given the chance?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that I think we underappreciated what the public would like to see us do in abortion restrictions. I'm glad that we went as far as we did. We basically worked within the confines of current jurisprudence to try to create as many limitations as possible. But I appreciate what Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, what some of those states are doing in actually pushing the envelope a little more. Our trigger bill, if one of those efforts actually overturn or modify Roe v. Wade, our trigger bill should make it where abortion will be outlawed in Arkansas. But I would have loved it in the point of the spear to create some of that opportunity to get it overturned. So anyway, I appreciate those other states and the legislatures doing it. If we have an opportunity to catch up in 2021, I want to do that.
Senator Bob Ballinger, thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on Capitol View on this Sunday morning. We sure appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you. We are back to wrap it up after this. You are watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
New ice cream cookie sandwiches from Sonic. Delicious cookies and real ice cream are on a summer reunion tour. They taste so good live. Hurry in for Sonic Nights. New $1.49 ice cream cookie sandwiches and half-price shakes after 8.
Maybe we could live in a house like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Why do we enforce seatbelt laws? Because in real life, you don't get a second chance.
This cake batter shake is like my favorite yellow cake.
Reminds me of licking the mixing bowl as a kid.
Lucky you, I had to sneak a lick while it was still being mixed.
Wow, that sounds kind of dangerous.
It was. In fact, it was very whiskey.
Don't miss out on cake batter shakes with real ice cream. Half price after 8 for Sonic Nights.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas. Welcome back. Voters in one House district in Pulaski County now know when they will get to pick the newest state representative. Governor Asa Hutchinson has set a special primary election in House District 36 for August 6th. A runoff would be September 3rd if needed, and the general election will be November 5th. The winner of this election will replace Representative Charles Blake, who stepped down to become Little Rock Mayor Frank Scott Jr.'s chief of staff. 3 Democrats have announced they are running. No word on if or when any Republican candidates will jump in. We'll, of course, keep you updated. And that is it for us on this Sunday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can always take Capitol View on the go. Download the Capitol View podcast wherever you go. And Capitol View will be back in 2 weeks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.